welcome to episode UKVersus, where we're joined by the lovely power couple Keenan and Ashley. And we're once again joined by Richard Monomer Hater Plumber.
Hi everyone, welcome to Keenan and Ashley. Thanks so much for joining us, guys.
I have changed my nickname to Can't Check Audio Levels because I messed up with the Chrome video last week. I forgot, I didn't realise it had sound and it wrecked like the first 5 minutes of the stream.
Oh, okay.
Right, so start off with our lovely guests. How's your week been?
It's been pretty good. We've been sick since coming back from Nationals, but Nationals was a blast. Had a lot of fun over there. I got to cast, and then Ashley was playing. So yeah, it's been very, very busy. And then since we've been back, it's been a lot of soup, and a lot of tea, and a lot of being on the couch. It's nothing but playing Baldur's Gate, pretty much.
My first time playing Baldur's Gate, so actually it's been a great weekend.
Yeah, I guess like self-defenses would be preferred to not be ill and just be having a week off and doing this stuff, right?
Right, for sure. But you know, if you have to be sick, at least you've got couch co-op. So
yeah,
great work.
And if you're going to get sick, what better way to get sick than at the UVS's biggest event in history?
Right.
That actually is true.
Yeah, common sickness is a thing, right? Like it's always hard to dodge, especially like contact size.
Yeah, we did. So there was 400 plus people at just the UVS event. There was like several thousand people there for everything else. And then on the way back, I sat next to a person on the plane who was wearing a mask and doing a lot of coughing. And then before we even got to the playing area, we did Meow Wolf, which is like an interactive art exhibit where you touch everything or you're invited to do so. So basically, there was no way for us not to get sick over the course of a week. Like it was just being a petri dish, walking around and saying, "Hey, who wants to infect me?" So this is really no surprise.
Yeah, it was hazmat suit or so you're gonna get something.
Yeah.
So
at least it was mild.
Right.
The biggest news of the week is the exclusive promo for the 75th anniversary of Godzilla on Godzilla Day. So for those that are not aware, despite my consistent shouting at UVS over the last few days, next Friday, starting at 9 a.m. EST, if you spend $75 on TCG Player, and you're one of the first 7,500 people to do it, you'll be sent a promo. 9 out of 10 are the full art Godzilla live action promos, and then 1 in 10 get the cool minimalistic art G ones. I am very hyped for this, despite the fact that me and Richard can't actually get them.
Yeah, it's a weird one, right? Like the character's cool. I don't think the character's necessarily very good. But obviously, yeah, there's been a lot of drama and sort of yelling and belting about like the availability of it, right? And I think it's less to do with how good the character is, because in theory this will be legal and standard when it's out, but more I guess sort of the precedent it sets. Because if there's only like 7,500 and Bola counts as a big Pokemon release coming out on that day, so a lot of them are going to end up in the hands of Pokemon players who might just put them in the bin or just do nothing with them. I think it's a cool idea from a marketing perspective, but yeah, just having back to the old mechanically unique promos kind of drum.
Well, before we get into the negatives, let's Keenan and Ashley, what are you hyped for these, and what was your initial reaction for this?
My initial reaction, I think verbatim, was Mothra, baby. I love horror movies. I love bad movies, and I love silly things. So Godzilla, gotta love Godzilla. I'm very excited.
Yeah, I thought I kind of had the same sort of opinion as Richard, where it's a little bit wacky the way that it's being distributed. It's really cool because like this is the first ever movie license, I think, for the game, and it really shows, hey, we're looking at branching out. I know Magic did Godzilla a little while ago, but Magic's also been grabbing a hold of a lot of licenses, so it makes you think like, are they running in the same circles with their licensing partners, and are they finding people who are like, oh, okay, well now that Magic's got like Doctor Who, maybe Doctor Who is open for UVS in a couple of years, which would be really cool, right? But like just from the promo perspective, at least it's bad, right? Like Godzilla is relatively uncompetitive. He's really cool. And
gonna
what
lose to a Godzilla, and then someone's gonna play this.
Right.
I want one person. I want one person to show up to the HLC Last Chance qualifiers with Godzilla, because we can't play him in the main event, but he is but he should be Last Chance qualifier legal.
I think if the HLC is 100% MHA spotlight, then I think it will be that. Then he will be off the table, right? Like, and I think the Last Chance qualifiers would probably. I mean, they haven't released any details about that yet, as far as I know.
In the UVS article, it specifically says that Godzilla is not legal for HLC participants.
Okay.
So the main 32 cannot play him. It was not mentioned about Last Chance qualifier. Yeah, it's been left open-ended.
It's left it open. I guarantee you they're not going to make people play standard in the Last Chance qualifiers to qualify for an MHA Spotlight tournament, right?
Terrible.
Like, I mean, to be fair, they've surprised us before, but like,
what? UVS making a terrible decision? Never.
Well, if they make it standard, isn't the only difference that the challenger decks will be available to be used, right? Because you have to say when it's been released yet, so set one won't have rotated.
And so anything that comes out in between.
Well, there won't be anything that's been released other than those challenger decks, right? So it's just going to be MHA plus challenger decks. And like, I guess on the subject of challenger decks, obviously they did announce they're going to have a Godzilla challenger deck coming, which again, really cool. It's a really cool like idea of like this is a license to bring in, especially with those challenger decks things. It's just sort of weird how this isn't just like an alt-art version of the character from the challenger deck, or something like that. If it was like there was a lot of No, Lenovo said specifically this is not in the challenger decks.
No, yeah.
Oh, really?
So
okay.
Lenovo has basically said that the challenger Godzilla will be different. This is a promotional card only, and although he cannot confirm it, it is unlikely it will be reprinted in any way. So the 7,500 go out. That is it, as far as Lenovo knows.
They're not going to have any set to the side at all.
I mean, they could put it on Redemption as like a basic copy, right? And that would fix all the problems.
Yeah.
It just there's a lot of ways of solving like the drama here and it not being an issue at all, and then they've chosen none of them. This could have been Hood, right? This could have been the exact same stats Hood, but essentially a Godzilla skin, and it would be really cool, and no one would care, and it would be really cool promo people to say, but there wouldn't be any drama, right?
If it was a reprint or a reskin, there'd be nowhere near as much drama. If it was Redemption available, nowhere near drama. But for UVS to go with one hand, we're taking away box toppers, we're taking away these mechanically unique promos that you can't redeem because we want everyone to have access to all the cards. And then a couple of months later, go, here's a mechanically unique promo that you can't get a redemption. It's like,
Yeah.
I'm just going to continue to be cautiously optimistic, I think. Only because I feel like if they had released this and then said, hey, 75, 75, 75, we're doing everything 75, Godzilla, buy money on this day. And then at the bottom they said, and also it'll be available here, blah, 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 later. No one would buy it that day. They just wouldn't make that money.
Well, the issue right now is that there's a Pokemon release the same day that it's coming out, and it's anyone who buys anything on TCG Player. So what's cool is we're gonna get a lot of Pokemon people who are gonna get access to the card, and maybe they'll be like, "Ooh, what is this? What is this game?" Right? And I think that's kind of the hope. But the problem is the people who actually already play the game are gonna have an even smaller chance of getting it because of that.
We can't pre-order set 6 on that day, can we?
Yeah, and I think it's anything you purchase.
I think I know Sean from Rochester's looking into doing a thing on that day to be able to effectively purchase product through him on that day to be able to then access the promo. So, bless you.
But
so some of the other big retailers might do, I think, because they've obviously got their TCG Player
as
shops.
Disappointed as a few of us are, because nostalgia. Godzilla was a big movie back in the 90s. Brandon, the OCE champion, is the most disappointed, and no one can take that away from him. He put pictures onto the main Facebook group of when he was in his MMA gear. He had like everything was Godzilla inspired. He had Godzilla kit, he had a Godzilla cake, and he was just asking people like, "Please, someone help me get a hold of this card." And I tagged Barry Everson because he's been a hero to the EU community in getting hold of cards. To be like, this community will help you out. Don't worry about it, mate. We will get you this card.
Yeah, I saw that post. It was pretty sick. Him with like the whole like it was like I guess I don't know if that was his persona or if that was just like I don't know like is how MMA and it sort of felt a little WWE with the way that it was like here's a theme that you got, but like he seems very passionate about Godzilla. So yeah, I'm hopeful that he can get something, and I'm sure somebody will have.
We're a nice community. Someone will get him.
If he can't get it sent to him, he more than likely somebody able to hook him up at the HLC because he'll be there as well.
Yeah, you think so.
So, is there anything else that you would like to touch on, Keenan and Ashley, before we move on to teams? Anything? Is there any topics you'd like to talk about?
I'm down for teams. I think that would be really cool to talk about.
All right. So while Keenan was casting and while I was playing in Top Cuts, we had our prospective nationals. Richard and Ashley were making their way through teams and walking away with the victories. Before we move on to how teams used to be, how did it feel for you, Ashley, being back in the team settings, and Richard can once again go over the glory of his victory at the EU?
So, teams is the most fun format, in my opinion. It's, I feel like it's a lot less pressure. Even back when you could get a big prize for winning teams, which in the old days was you get a foundation or an asset that your team gets to design and be on. It was just so much more laid back. People are just excited to play their cool stuff and just see their friends and hang out. So definitely still had that vibe. There's a lot of rules changes that happened
during the event.
What's that?
They happened during the event as well.
Yeah. If y'all are okay with me just jumping into that.
Go for it.
Yeah.
So previously, for anyone that didn't know, how teams has always worked when I played is you sit down across from the other team. It's 3 people versus 3 people. Everyone lays out what their character is, and that's all you get to know, what character they're playing. And then one member of each team will roll some dice or whatever you want to do to determine someone winning a chance. And whichever team wins goes to the side, and they get to pick one matchup, one of their team members that they want to play specifically against one of the other team members. And then the losing team gets to pick the other 2 remaining matchups. Then you sit down, you roll some die or whatever you want to do to decide which of each individual 2-person matchups is going to go first. Best of 3 games for each individual team or each individual pair, and then whichever team gets 2 of 3 wins overall that match and then continues on. Here's how it went this time. So they have changed it to best of 1 game for each individual pair of people that are playing. So if you win the die roll, you've got a real advantage because there's only 1 game and you get to go first for that 1 game. There was also a big match, and I don't want it to sound like I'm complaining too much because, like I said, I love teams and I had a lot of fun, and most other people I talked to were also having a lot of fun. But at various points throughout the day, and sometimes it was during round 1, sometimes it was during round 3, a judge would come up and say, "Hey, how are you deciding who's playing who and who's going first?" And we'd explain the way it's always been, and they'd go, "No, that's not what we're doing at this event. What we're doing at this event is team captains are in the middle. They sit down to get facing each other, and then everyone else sits down randomly, and whoever you sit down against, that's who you're playing. You have no idea what their character is. You don't get that foreknowledge. There is no rolling off to decide who's versus who. And then the team captains are going to roll their dice, and whoever wins, every single member of that team captain's team has won the die roll and gets to go first in their best of 1 game. And then 2 of 3 continues."
How many times did you win the dice roll?
Oh gosh.
Did you get to go first for all your rounds?
So here's the thing.
Because if everybody on that team got to go first,
right.
I mean, like, that's
So
Pretty
here's
good.
the thing about that. Like I said, sometimes they were telling us this round 1, sometimes they were telling us this round 3. So round 1 and 2, we did it the old way because no one had told us that's not what they were doing this event. Round 3, I returned from grabbing some water to find my 2 teammates and the other 3 that we're playing with having some heated words with one of the judges who had just now come to tell us that we're not doing it that way. And these are the actual rules. And shout out to that one dude, because all 5 of us were like, or all 6 of us were like, no, that's dumb. We've never done that. We've been doing the best of 1 game, but we've never been doing that die roll nonsense. We want to choose our matchups. That's the point of teams. And he said, I mean, if all 6 of y'all want to do that, I don't care. Do what you want. We said, great, we will. But there was apparently the head judge at multiple points throughout the day when people said, no, that's not how it is. He said, I'm the head judge and that's how it is today. So I don't remember if we won our die rolls for anything except I think we won round 3.
And to be fair, the judging was very it seemed like it was centralized by Star City, and I don't have a whole lot of like context to provide in terms of that because I was spending I had so much of my time in the booth that I wasn't necessarily like I was talking with the judging staff, but I don't know who was judging all the side events and things. So it's possible that there was a judge who was like either new to the game or like they had talked to Jasco about it and they decided to do it this way, and it was like a Star City person who was doing it. UVS games, sorry, goodness, I'm gonna continue to mess that up. But yeah, so it definitely doesn't sound like there were ideal scenarios happening all over it. But I mean, there were some cool parts, like the number of teams that stayed around, like 56 teams. That's like 150 people coming to play in a teams event that was best of 3, and it had like a really crummy rule set. Is still not bad.
And to clarify, I think another way that we differed is the winner was any team that went 3-0. And I think there were 3 or 4 teams that went 3-0 and got the top prizing, which was just one of each of the promos that was available at the event per team member. So if your team went 3-0, each of you got to go home with one of the promos.
Yeah.
I mean, it must have been hard getting hold of judges for any of the events, given that the majority, like 99% of the community, were playing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's weird. Like, obviously, so for the UK teams, we played it by the rules as you would have thought it would be. So there were best of 3 matches. You picked your matchups. You all rolled individually. That was fine. So I'm just wondering, sort of, I guess, what their motivation was for changing it for US stats. Like, is it a time thing? Was that really it?
Well, the time thing also wouldn't make that much a difference. It takes all of 3 minutes to determine your matchups unless you're really into it, which, this is best of 3. It's not a huge event. It's mostly just there for fun and promos. But at one point, the last team that I played against and my team did hang out and discuss with each other because we'd had a really fun matchup. And one of my teammates had mentioned, well, there's one person over the head judge, and that's the tournament organizer, who is Jelly. So if we needed to, we could call him in. And now in retrospect, I'm glad we didn't bother him because he was very busy. But it would have been interesting to call him in and say, hey, was this a UVS Games decision, or was this something that Star City is coming up with themselves? Was this maybe like how teams works in another format and they got mixed up?
I think I had heard from another attendee that there was somewhat of a time constraint on it. The weird part is UVS Games, and there were multiple issues with timing throughout the course of the event.
There always is.
They had to push rounds 8 and 9 to day 2, which they'd never had to do before, but there were a lot of hiccups that happened as a result of that basically ended up where that was what had to happen. So yeah, I think time was definitely an issue, but that was on Sunday, and I don't know that they didn't end until like 11 p.m. Central Time.
Well, and the thing is that there were so many other side events that were going on well past the end of Teams. Teams was only going to take 3 hours if it stayed within time constraints. If we really just futzed about when we were doing our matchups, we could have maybe taken that to 4. But the 3v3 started after Teams ended. So
the triple threat?
Triple threat, yeah. Triple threat started after Teams ended. So what was it couldn't have been about that bad of a time constraint.
If it was a 5-round sort of Swiss going to a singular winner, you can see the best of one kind of being a thing, because it cuts it down from a 5-hour event to like a 3.5, 4-hour event. But if it's capped at 3 rounds, it's a very weird decision.
Was there still a time limit?
There was still an hour time limit.
Oh.
So like it didn't. I don't see why it mattered.
No.
One of my teammates was playing Rappa. One of my teammates was playing Mirio, and then I was playing Nejire. So every single round was just those two finished.
Right.
And
but like an overhaul recovery girl team that is sitting down is still going to eat an hour game, and the tournament can still take the same amount of time.
Exactly. But my teammates could have had more games.
That's true.
Yeah, like it makes sense for like, you know, I can understand, well, not make sense, but I can understand going to best of one for the time constraints, right? But the choosing of the matchups and like, you know, you having individual dice rolls, like one team winning all the dice rolls just seems insane because that's saving you what 10 seconds if that. And the whole choosing the matchups thing was the interesting part, was the fun part. Like, you know, so for me at the UK one, that was my first interaction with teams. I'd never played a teams event before. Obviously, I scrubbed out day one. I'm like, cool, let's play teams day two. It'll be fun. And it just was. It was so much fun. Just sitting there, you know, I had the pleasure of being the team captain, so I got to sit there and look at matchups like, right, what do I want to pair? So like my team was me on Godzilla because I didn't bring anything else, and I couldn't be able to make something else. Then we had an evil Tabe, and then I think it was Air Snipe.
Wow, so, this is why teams is fun, because you can do stuff like this.
Yeah, and like he was like had like 4 main board like exploding pride, so we got to the round one and he's like, okay, right, we're pairing you into the Yamajiki.
Right.
So, like, yeah, just having be able to have those cool decisions and play those cool matchups, and like that was just so much fun. And and again, people just weren't, you know, obviously people were very good decks, but they weren't taken as seriously. Like round one, I got paired into Hojo, who was playing like Warpgate Portal, which was really, really sweet. And then I just did stupid Future is Now Degenerate things and felt bad.
Just to clarify from
the freedom of teams, right? It gives you that opportunity to play that deck that's a little bit outside of the meta, because like you're trying to create a composition that makes sense, and you're just like, maybe that Hojo deck has insane like 30-0 matchup into Overhaul that nobody necessarily knows about, but loses to, you know, the other 90% of the metagame. But if you know every team's gonna have an Overhaul on it, you're like, yeah, slap that guy in there.
Right. That's the other fun thing, is that you could take a deck that you go, I could never take this to Worlds because if I get paired into one of the common decks, I can't win against it. So if I see none of them, I'm great. But if I see 4 of them, that's my whole run done. And you can just count on your teammates to either be like, hey, keep me away from this, or if you get paired into it because your opponent won the die roll, go, all right, well, y'all two just decide amongst yourselves how you two win.
Right, yeah.
To clarify Richard's point earlier, he didn't scrub out day one. He lost a winning into arguably probably the best player in the country.
The best player? I don't know. Like, he's certainly up there, right? He's certainly like top 5 at the very least. I don't know who I'd say the best player in the country. Possibly Grant. Possibly Luke.
Oh yeah, Luke's been having some runs for sure.
But I think Grant is the only one who would accept the moniker of best player in the country. Luke would say, no, I'm not good enough for that yet. But what you've been saying, Ashley, kind of brings on to the next point, and something I think Richard was worried about when we were talking about last week, was if they brought teams back as a competitive format, would that take away from these unique decks? Would people actually start taking it more seriously? Immediately, no.
People would take it more seriously. It would take away from the fun decks a little bit. We would still have lots of fun decks. It's always been that way. The first nationals that I went to, this is way before UKVersus, so these are matchups that people probably have no idea. Keenan played Pharaoh Man.
No, okay.
We came in second.
Okay, my Pharaoh Man deck was terrible. We did come in second.
I deck
did absolutely nothing but aggro, and somehow we still won because we had. So it was Ashley on a and that's the cool part, because like I was talking to I cannot remember who I was talking to about this. I was talking to someone about team strategy, and they were talking through what is a good team strategy. And I've never heard players talk about this. So we've always kind of like said, hey, we're gonna play things that we think have fun matchups or kind of fun decks, but like one of the person who takes it more serious is like, you got to have a meta piece, right? You got to have your Overhaul or your Mirio or your Gajiro. Then you have to have, and anti-meta piece, so something that destroys Overhaul or Mirio or Gojira, what have you. And then you have to have a wild card.
I think it was Matt Childress.
It was Matt Childress, yeah.
Because Matt Childress, who was one of my teammates, the morning when he was trying to decide what to play, we kind of wanted 2 wild cards. So we sat down next to Keenan and said, "Hey, Keenan, if you sat down against this deck, would you know what's coming?"
Smashmite.
Yeah. At first it was Midoriya.
Yeah.
We said, "Would
too.
you know what's coming?" And Keenan said, "This."
Lot of punches, lot of draw, a lot of momentum, whatever. It's like every Mirio deck, but you're putting speed instead of changing the zone, so you're kind of just a little bit worse.
And Matt was like, "Yep, that's the deck. What about Smashmite? Do you know what's in Smashmite?"
Absolutely not.
So he played Smashmite.
Yeah. And yeah, you guys ended up going 3-0, and part of that is because Smashmite dunks on people sometimes, and nobody necessarily knows what it does.
Mm-hmm. So if you have wild cards.
Sorry?
I'm saying I couldn't tell you what the text on Smashmite says. I know he does things with cards with Smash in his name, but like that's about it.
That's all anyone knows.
Yeah, and
he has a second ability. I cannot think it is, but I just know it's draw a card when you play a Smash card.
Yeah. So it's draw a card when you play a Smash card. I think his is flip a foundation for 2 damage or 2 speed onto either a card with Smash or Punch, and then he's got. I think he's the one where if you block, no, he gives. If your opponent's in deadlock, you get stunned to all your punches for the rest of the turn.
Yeah,
so
form once per game. Deadlock all your attacks.
Yeah. And Matt was playing this really crazy version where he was using the loop with that 3-diff that flips to put the card back on top of your deck.
Award Victors and Hard and Brush.
Yeah.
So I got to play his deck against Chris because I was walking between rounds on one of my break rounds, and I got to Detroit Smash his opponent. I got to Detroit Smash Chris playing Rappa twice. He only played 1 Detroit Smash in the deck, and I got to go attack, ditch it, draw 3, ditch a momentum, get 3 momentum, give this +5 speed, keep 1 momentum in, bounce it, hit you with it again, draw 3 cards, do that again. Like, it was so silly and stupid and ridiculous, but like, it knocked over Rappa. It was a 2-0 like swift finish, and it was just like, I'm a little tanky as a 6-hander, and I play cards that sometimes have +0 blocks on them. So sometimes you just win the game, I guess. I don't know.
But if you don't know what it does,
exactly,
then your opponent easily could say, "Oh, well, I'm Rappa. I'm never going to go into deadlock. Maybe we purposefully pair me into this," and then done.
And so, Richard, I'm curious because of your team. I love Tabe as a team's character. I think that is really where that character can thrive more than anything, because like he is so good into 7-hand size characters. It's ridiculous.
Yeah,
like he uses them.
I think one round, like our opponent paired him into Tokiyami for us, I think, or maybe we paired, but it's like, that's just like one of his perfect matchups. It's like, cool, I'll eat your, food is just messes up so many decks.
Mm-hmm.
I think, I can't remember the exact matchups we had over the course of the day.
Before you get into that, Richard, we've got a comment from Andrew Holder in the chat saying that Keenan is no Tim Keefe Farah man.
No, I'm not. Tim Keefe played off the life symbol, which was the right idea. I played off the order symbol, which had 8 cards that were foundations that were 2 diffs that don't count towards progressive difficulty and basically didn't have text. Like the entire deck was trash. But sorry, Richard, continue, please.
Yeah, and like Jiro has a really bad Tabe matchup because you're just not allowed to take momentum against Tabe. Like that's the trick to sort of beat him. Because his face attack Insatiable Appetite just says punishes you for ever taking momentum. So there's plenty of those matchups where we felt, okay, we'll pair Tabe here, or okay, me as Jiro, I can probably take out the overhaul or whatever. I'll pair him, and then actually we just don't care about which way they pair the other two because we're happy with either way.
Right. And so, were you thinking about your strategy like in the weeks beforehand for teams? Like, did you have your team kind of set aside, like, hey, if we all scrub out, we're all going to go in and we're all going to play these decks? Or like, when did you decide on the strategy, and why did you, what were like your thought processes for your choices?
You're giving me far too much credit. No, I mean, I figured I'd play teams if I'd scrubbed out game one. And then day 2, because I think there was 5 of us that had come up from Hastings. So we had, and then we was like, okay, let's work out who's going to make the team, and then we'll see if we can find a third. So 3 of the guys, they played their team, which was, I think, Stain won.
Oh god.
And I think Momo won and Mirio. And then, so there's me and my friend Gary, who played Tarbo the previous day. He didn't have the other deck, so that's what he's playing. So I'm like, okay, we need a third. And then we found Nathaniel, who wanted the team, and he's like, right, I remember him playing Snipe back in 8 years ago, like a year or 2 ago, at like a school professional, and like that's always been his, I think, his pet deck. So he's like, cool, I'm playing Snipe in this thing. So like, cool, fun, let's have some fun. And that, we didn't really go into it thinking like this is a good kind of pairing in terms of like going into matchups and things like that. We just like, here's 3 of us, let's just have some fun for the day. Right. And actually worked out that threesome, actually going into all of our matches, we didn't feel like we ever really had a bad option. We always felt like whether that's like pairing Tarbo into something, or pairing Snipe into something, or just pairing me into something as Giro, just saying I can just race you and do my thing. We always felt like that was a good option for the pairings.
Yeah. So I'm kind of curious. So what I want to do, I want to throw a hypothetical team at you and just talk me through how you would pair this, because I think this is useful for people who've never played teams before or had to play North America teams, and they saw, hey, this is not really how it works, but like if teams is a real supported format, right, and your team of Tabe, Snipe, and Jiro go up against a team of like, let's say like meta powerhouses, we've got Overhaul, Mirio, and Eraserhead off of, it's off of Void because you've seen one of those matches before. You win the dice roll. What is your thought process going into pairing that kind of thing?
Okay, so we had I think a very similar one in the last round. Mm-hmm. It was an Overhaul, a Mirio, and a Tokiyami.
Okay, perfect.
So we won the dice roll, and I'm like, okay, you guys probably aren't necessarily great into Overhaul. Me as Jiro, I can race Overhaul. I'm happy with, that was the thing with good Jiro. I was happy with my Overhaul matchup, hated Mirio. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to pair myself into Overhaul.
Right.
And then whichever way around the other 2 go, like the Tokiyami, in our instance, it's like if it gets paired into Snipe, Snipe can just burn it down. Gets paired into Tarbo, that's horrible from that side. So we were happy with either ones. So your one was Overhaul, Mirio, and Eraserhead.
Yeah.
I think I'll probably make the same call, actually.
Yeah.
And say, pair me into the Overhaul, because I'm the one that I think I can confidently race it and possibly defend against it. And then, whether that's Snipe with like all the burn damage, or whether that's Tarbo with his foods going into Eraserhead, we're happy with either of those, and then take a coin flip on the Mirio matchup with whoever gets paired there.
That's awesome. Yeah, that is, I think, where the value of teams really lies. It's in the matchup picking, because it's so often when you're just like, because sometimes you'll dice roll and you'll be like, you know what, you guys make first pick, because I would rather have 2 choices as opposed to just having the 1 choice. Those are some really fun like when you feel comfortable making that decision, because the 3 characters that you see versus your 3 characters, you're like, I know we've got 2 of 3 of this, and we're just gonna let them put their beater like wherever it's gonna just laser in, and maybe Ashley gets absolutely incinerated, but the other ones are 90-10 matchups. So
round 2.
Yeah. So
I didn't have an option of if we win the dice roll, giving them the first pick.
Oh really? Okay. It was just when you win the dice roll, you pick. Okay. Yeah, that was definitely how they did it, like back in the UFS days, right? Yeah. But I can see why they would change that. I think it's a really neat option to have sometimes. It's a
so
mind
fun.
game too, right?
Yeah.
Like you're like, okay, you guys pick, and then they pick wrong because you put an evil Tabe on their team, and maybe they were expecting like death or something like that, and they were just thinking about the death cards that they needed to worry about, and not the evil ones they needed to think about. So it's
So
it's really fun for me.
Question for the group.
Round 1, we certainly lost the die roll, and so they had I don't know what symbol it must have been, probably Order Nezu playing bullet punches, and they were like, right, we're definitely pairing him into Snipe because he can just do the thing. Then I played against the 1 check Yuhojo, and then it was, I think, All Might 3. So yeah, it was just like this crazy lineup of like All Might 3, One Check Yu Hojo, and Bullet Punches Nezu.
Right, so, question for the group: if you were in charge of bringing back teams as a competitive format, would you bring it back as a standard event, as is the new standard rules, or would you bring it back as a competitive spotlight format?
I think it has to be a standard event, just because of the nature of teams essentially being what kind of weird witchcraft do you want to do. So you'd want access to all of the cards across all of the different sets, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
And
agree. Okay.
One of the, obviously we've seen unofficially or speculated or things you can't be talking about that there's possibly cardboard available and as prizing now again. And
So
They're thinking about it at least.
that is worded so vaguely that the people I've talked to and the way I'm reading it myself, that in the article that doesn't exist, it's you're invited to help design a card. It is not you are a card. So I don't
Right.
think the people I've talked to when we've actually looked at the wording, it's been a case of I don't think hot take is I don't think they're bringing back people as cards. I just think you get to have some intake into, say, a set 7 character or a character that's coming in the future.
That's the way I read it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would want to. The
I didn't say
printing
that's
it
what
out
I
of yourself
want.
is the coolest
Oh,
thing.
I
Sorry.
would 100% want a Brett Pendragon card. This card's character classes as a Dabby card.
Right, but I mean, like, you think about like the amount of effort and the amount of money that they put in the initial HLC, which was like $250,000 plus flights, plus food, plus if like the events, hotel, all of the stuff that
Plus the meal.
they paid for that.
Don't forget
Like
the meal.
the overhead on their printing a card. I mean, there's playtest time that has to go into it. So if you're paying your playtesters and you're paying for that playtest time, there's printing, which you're going to basically, like, when they used to do it back in the day, they would print whole batches of champ characters. Like they would print like 2 or 3 years at a time, so they'd be able to like do that all in one print run. So I mean, like, overall the investment is so minor compared to what the HLC, like, and I'm not saying that they're not doing money, but based on that article that came out, it doesn't seem like they're doing money.
But the rumblings from last year was that obviously the IP owners was not happy with money, therefore they're not allowed to do it anymore.
And the main reason the article's been pulled is because the information isn't complete. But
Right.
that could also be, is this an ugly Sonic situation where the community kicked off enough that like, we need to change it.
Right.
I don't think they have the ability to change it to close to what it was last year. And I'm fine with that.
My biggest issue, seeing as we're talking about the article that shouldn't be named anyway, my biggest issue was the fact the promos don't accumulate. You get, so without mentioning what these promos are, where you end depends on what you get. And going off what the top 8 promo was, it's a case of, as good as designing a card is, the top 8 character is just so nice. It's like, yeah, I get to top 8 and I don't want the top 4-1. And the top 1 and top 2 are the most basic of the characters. Yes, they're really pretty, but I'm never going to play them. This one I might.
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to read the article. So that day that you sent that article, so we've gotten through security at the Atlanta airport, and we are on the train heading to our terminal because the Atlanta airport's massive, so it has its own train.
Oh, I know.
It's like 6 or 7 terminals. And I'm like, suddenly I get a buzz from Brett Pendragon. I'm like looking down my phone, like, check out this article. And I'm like, all right, Brett, give me like 10 minutes, man. And by the time I'd gotten back, it had already evaporated. So like, you had posted a little bit to me about all of that. I don't know like how widespread all of that information got, but like talking a little bit to Levi over at because we got to room with Levi at Nationals. It sounded like it was just something that it was like that was a brainstorming session that somebody had started to ideate onto the site just to kind of create a baseline, and then like then they found out that somehow it had gotten published. Like it was never designed to be there because there was still ideation to come. So like I don't know if we can really I don't think we can put any stock right into that article.
I pretty much heard the same thing. It was the discussion was going forward as to whether to publish that article as it was to give us some HLC information or to wait until the full information was available, and it just got set. It just got pushed live early, and then UVS just went, "Oh no, we got to pull it quickly."
So yeah, and you know that kind of stuff happens, and people have like site scrapers that are like, "Oh, we found a new page," and it's like, wait a minute, no, please.
Yeah, but like you know, the card, you know, winning cardboard is always like one of those coolest prizes you could win. So like, you know, whether it's designing a character, help like design an attack, but I think having like your face on there somewhere should be part of that prize. And sort of going back to the teams thing, I think, you know, the idea of having, you know, remember back standard, you can get around those kind of very strict art guidelines that obviously the My Hero Ice don't have. You can start thinking about, you know, having a teams with like, you know, those assets or foundations with the team on it, right? And I think that would be a really good thing to bring back. Now we're going to a more standard and can fit these things into things more.
Yeah, and standard definitely makes sense because you could just print like that's the nice part. You can just print a promo. It's like this is legal for this amount of time. Yeah. This was now you can just say this was released in 2023, so that means or 2024. That means it's gonna cycle out with all the other 2024 stuff. And I mean that actually makes a lot more sense than just like this is Champ Batch 1. It's gonna cycle out at some arbitrary point in time, and Champ Batch 2 is gonna come back in. So
do you know what makes me sad about? Do you know what makes me sad about the new rotation? Sword Might and Ball Might will rotate out before All Might 7.
Wait, really?
Yeah, because they were printed in two. Well, Ball Might is technically different, but they're 2022 printed.
Right? The promos count with the stamp, right? They with the set. So
look
when they say an art version.
Chris Smith played an altered Mirio. I think it was actually like an art that he did, or that like somebody did, or he found online, and he just like printed it out and had that as his character for the entire event. Like, and then he was like, if a judge comes over, I've got the actual copy, but I'm going to play with this version. And no one had any problems with it. So if you're, I don't think anybody's going to make a stink about Ball Might or Sword Might or whatever. Well, but you know,
you say that, but during events in the UK, one or two players have turned up with like fully altered art cards, and then have had to completely re-sleeve their deck, basically going, no, you're not allowed to play those. But he's like full art changes.
Is it obstructing the text on the card?
I don't know. This is just what I've heard. It was
okay.
Yeah, a couple of players like that are used to the Magic rules of like you can completely cover the card with art and it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I mean, I think for our game, a lot of it has always been like, because we used to play, and again, this is old. This feels like Calvin Ball at this stage because it's so long ago. But like, people would just like sign cards, and then people would play like the signed copies of champ cards that they got in their main board, and like nobody cared about that. Or
there was a card that used to say, hey, when you check this card, respond, draw a card. And there were multiple people that I played against that had just written on that card, draw a card. So they wouldn't miss the response.
That is no longer legal, I think.
No, I don't think that's legally anymore. But at the time,
you're right.
But
they didn't have the little light. They didn't say like bing bong.
If you speak a language the judges don't speak and then write that over the art of the card, you're fine.
It's fine.
It's got this. I got my card signed by Dr. A.W. Card.
But yeah, I would love the team's cards to come back to go all the way back to that, because it's been we've kind of did the full roundabout on the world stuff. But yeah, having teams, I think for it though, like really what's gonna have to happen, and they used to do this back in the day, but teams needs to have its own Swiss day. It cannot just continue to be this, hey, top players, you people who topped the event, you go do this one thing, while the rest of the team's people figure it out amongst yourselves, mash yourselves together until you form individual groups of 3. Because like there is so much strategy that can go into a teams format.
Yeah.
There are so many ways that you can specifically modify. Like one of the core rules of teams, and I don't know if they were doing it at Nats, but you can only have 8 copies of a single
They were.
card.
This year they were.
Okay.
Last year they
didn't do
not
that,
because they didn't have enough cards published.
Yeah,
to make
and
that
they
a
didn't talk
viable
about
thing.
it quickly enough, right? Like they
Yeah.
didn't say like, hey, this is going to happen, and also you have to have this specific stipulation. And they wanted more people to play, which makes sense because what you're trying to do is give them a little aperitif
Yeah.
for a real teams format.
Right.
But that means setting aside a full day where people can say, all right, the people who are really good at this, the people who are really good at and going to top, eventually are at least going to have an opportunity to all come together and play.
Isn't
And
that
I think-
how it used to work? So teams used to be
Yes.
the Friday beforehand. It was everything and the top cuts in one day.
It did. It was good and bad, right? Because Gen Con was just tournaments for UKVersus for 4 straight days. And I don't know, Brett or Richard, if you guys have been to Gen Con,
No.
it is the most fun convention I've ever been to, and I've really enjoyed the last couple of years getting to enjoy the convention. When it was teams, it was Friday teams, Saturday singles, Sunday top cuts for both. So
Which, like, that is something that I think, as much as it would be great to bring back teams day before,
Yeah.
what they used to do was, okay, so now we've done Friday Swiss teams, Saturday Swiss singles, and then Sunday we're gonna finish teams top cuts, and then we're gonna do top cuts for singles, which meant in 2019 when I got to top cuts for singles,
You didn't
we
start
did
your
not
rounds.
start until 3 p.m.
Ooh.
Untimed rounds, top 32, 3 p.m.
Was it top 32?
No, it was
top 16,
okay,
right?
Untimed round, top 16, 3 p.m.
Right.
So
right.
what time
So
did you get out
obviously,
from
like,
singles?
Yeah, like it feels like with the way that singles is now, where if we continue rolling this ball down the hill and we get to 513 or however many players, and we have to add that extra round, and if we end up going to, like, God forbid, a top 64 elimination stage, like, that has to be its own separate day, right?
Yeah.
And maybe teams. Maybe it's its own event. Maybe they find a place where they can host a team's nationals or worlds, and it could be a national level or a world's level event, but something where it's got its own space. Or you do it at the HLC where you've already got this space rented out for 4 days, and you're like, all right, well, this is going to be team singles or teams Swiss. Then next day is teams elimination, and then standard in the other one. But yeah.
I really do miss old teams and how much effort and people put into it.
Oh yeah.
But I also did appreciate this year that it used to be, all right, you go teams and then you go singles, and then if you didn't make top cuts for either one on day 3, you're wandering around and staring at the wall. And it was nice to say, oh, I really scrubbed out in singles, but don't worry, because tomorrow we're gonna have sealed, and we're gonna have teams, and we're gonna have triple threat, and we're gonna have, it reached a point where someone ran up and was like, do you have a triple threat team? And I was like, no, but I'm tired.
They were running retro events that day too. Like, you could literally play any of the formats of UKVersus on day 3, regardless if you did well in the tournament or not. And you're also winning promos that people really want to win.
So I would love to see old teams come back. I don't know if that's viable in that format of devoting a whole day to it beforehand and then splitting the tops. But it felt so
retro. So retro's like your Sunday bigger thing while you were in top cuts, and Friday is your team's day.
That's totally fair, right?
Yeah, they would have to do better about starting earlier, because retro, there was no top cuts. It was just the 2 people I think that went undefeated won.
Right, yeah.
So
retro,
our retro was handled a little bit differently than yours. Ours started at 11 a.m.
Yeah.
So
ours probably should have started.
Yeah, and we had 5 rounds because there was about just over 30 of us, but you guys had like ridiculous numbers.
124 people playing retro.
They had to open additional slots.
They literally doubled the initial size. I might be making that up. It could be 100. I think it's 128. Yeah. Either way, it's a format that's 13 years old.
Yeah,
Those cards you can't even get anymore. And people were just like, all right, screw it, I'll save it my MHA deck. That was the coolest thing I've ever seen. I was never, in a million years. So we had a massive standard event last year at Nationals. And I was like, yeah, sure, maybe we could get some people to put some standard cards in some decks. But I never thought that people would be like, we talked to LWG and Rochester after the event. I think Sean said that he sold, both Sean and Miles said that they sold more retro at this event than they've sold in probably like the last 5 or 6 years combined.
I think both of them said they sold more retro than My Hero.
Oh, yeah. Miles said that he left with half the retro that he came. I think it was about half the retro that he came with, and maybe it was just like he was talking about like boxes and pallets and stuff, and I don't understand how inventory works. And then he said he left with more MHA than he came with because people were selling cards. So like it was crazy. And then they were also firing retro events on day 3, and it was really cool because retro was like this big mishmash of like you got new players who are like they want to see how the cards work and they want to get the promos, but they also kind of want to understand a little bit more about this complex world. And then you've got all these old heads who just want to play the deck that they played 4 years ago, and they're like, man, I really miss playing Astaroth or Nightmare or whatever. And then you have fucking Jesse Cervini, who comes out with this Ragdoll deck who's playing all action cards. Like it was a really cool mix of like innovating on the formats that innovating on a collective format, new players who are like, I don't know what this is, but I'm in for more cards, and I want to try and see what all this nonsense is about. And then the people who are like, I just like playing the horse that I've been riding for the last 10 years, back to glory at some point. So yeah, it was heartening to see, genuinely.
Playing retro on the Friday for me made Nationals a lot easier because staring down a 7-8 maximum overhaul is nothing when you faced against this Mimic combo deck, the Mimic card, not the Mimic character, that is like an infinite cycle where you just keep discarding top card of your deck to get infinite damage, and I'm sat there going, I can block this, and they go, I'm going to copy Spirit Shotgun, I can't block this anymore.
You can block it, you're just going to take half.
I was playing Vega, I was very, very squishy.
So, was this your first experience with Retro, Brett?
Yes, this is I played Standard in August. I didn't really have that much fun because it was... we got told last minute that it was a best of one, and I built it I built a Mina 1 Gauge deck that went into then find Mina 2 and basically play multiple cards as well.
Okay, so you like playing like Liu Kang stuff and like windmill punch stuff?
Yeah, it was a complete meme deck, and then the idea was I lose game 1, then go into my serious character game 2, which I didn't get to do. But for this one, I went a little bit more try hard. I went Vega with Vile Seizings, Chronostasis Trigger, Maze Castle, Time Slow, Matador Turn.
Oh my god!
Yes. Oh my god, that's so awesome.
I basically had a box of platinum, and I was like, I'm gonna open it up and I'm gonna build what I've got here. So I had like 1 Time Slow, 1 Bat Swing, 1 S-Class Hunter, which did some serious work for me as well.
Oh yeah. Yeah, S-Class has been reprinted a million times since like way back in the day. It was initially called Ring Veteran, but those cards have always been good. I don't know why people don't play Proud Scion, because it's just like the same thing, but it's that retro genuinely is just it's such a cool thing to actually be doing, like to be seeing people playing it and
see it succeeding.
Yeah.
I think more people play Proud Scion if it didn't have the Deadlock response and it had the League of Villains response like S-Class Hunter's got.
Yeah,
because S-Class Hunter's got that 2 damage whenever they use a committed foundation. It's like, stun 2, oh cool, I'll flip and get a card, cool, you'll burn 2 for that?
Yeah, especially now that Tenacious is going to be a keyword, I have a feeling like it's going to see a lot. Because when we had S-Class Hunter, that burn didn't come up too much. But I think as the game has gotten older, they've been a little bit more loose with like, all right, let's just, play well committed. That's fine. Let's make it a keyword. Let's burn for everything.
That's a great fact.
As the League of Villains wasn't a good enough card.
I played against a person, Harvey, who was playing a Tenacious card, lose 1 life, this attack gets -2 speed. I was like, I'm going to burn you for 2 when you do that. I sent my list to somebody else and they're like, I love Plant Barrier. I was like, I can't get over how good Plant Barrier actually turned out to be.
Oh, dude, that card is rad. Yeah, Platinum, it was just like the best +0 mid block of all time that just sticks 6 checks or whatever the hell else you want on top of it and then draws you a card for fun. Like,
what I was doing, I was using it on defense, basically going, half block plant barrier, stack maze castle, Chronostasis trigger, Val Caesar on top of my deck. Then using it's a Mega Man card that says when you take damage, if you've not drawn a card this turn, you get to draw a card.
Oh yeah.
And it's like I'll just pick up this breaker. I'll pick up this lovely breaker box.
Yeah.
I had a lot of fun. I was very annoying, and I got. I want to play more retro against Nathan Squire. His first card turn 1 was a full impact Cowling. So he made it a 2/11 and then evil gazed it.
Oh, good lord!
And that was the first card played.
Good God!
I was like, okay.
Did you get attacked on turn 1 at all?
I did. That was it. It was turn 1. Full impact Cowling, +7 damage. Evil gaze to make it a 4-speed low. I was at 19 health. I was like, I guess I'm playing at 8 now.
Yep.
But luckily, being Vega, my desperation was online, which made all of his attacks a lot harder to play.
Did you watch any of the retro stream from the US?
Because you guys started a bit later, I caught like round 1, and then I had to go to bed.
I think it was like the second to last round. There was a Zolt deck there, which if you've seen any of the 7th Cross cards, Zolt was largely considered to be completely unplayable for his entire run in the card game, but just having 24 sets or so to play with, Aaron Cook created this absolute monstrosity. He played against a Shiva, which was, largely considered... Shiva and Goro get unbanned, right?
Yeah.
Everybody's like, oh my god, these characters are going to ruin the format. They're going to be terrible. And sure, Goro did, get in the top 4, I want to say. But, we saw Aaron turn 1 smack Shiva for an unblockable 16 with, Shoki Gahosen, throw 2 multiples in, give it +6/+6, gateway shuffle, turn 1, and it was the hypest thing I've ever seen. And then the last thing that he did to win that match was multiple out one of Zolt's main attacks for 5. Each of them all plink you for 1, but I'm gonna dual persona every single one. And dual persona is like a card from Red Horizon 1, and it was played back in the day, but it's not considered remotely playable. But because of how it's worded, somehow Zolt allows it so all of them still deal 1 damage because their damage can't be modified. And then the next attack that he played was Splendor Love, which was like an old Lilith tin card that you can discard everything that dealt 1 or less or 2 or less damage from your card pool to pay for its powerful effect. So dual persona gave Splendor Love +12 damage, and then it POW 3'd the rest of the card pool out for I think it was a 5 high for 30. That Shiva's a 4-hand size character she couldn't block, and Aaron ended up going down on the final round. But it was so cool seeing just absolute mad scientist bullshit from so many people there.
Yeah.
It was amazing. It was I think that was some of the most fun casting I did all weekend.
This is going to mean nothing to Richard. Unfortunately, Richard was driving up on the Friday, so he didn't take part in retro. But the top 4 of the EU retro was Akuma, and the overall winner was Heidi Voltron.
Oh yeah. Somewhere around here, our dog is named Heidi after that card.
Yep. Because Bo Tucker is the OG Heidi. He made a name for himself getting second with us in teams a bunch of times because we can never win teams. But
we can get to second real good.
We get to second real good. But so we've had him on our team quite a lot, and Heidi Voltron has always been his bread and butter. So I've gotten to see that deck work, and it's a deck that I could never actually play ever because it just takes the kind of brain that is not. It seems fast and loose. It's trying to get this combo off turn 2, turn 3 at the latest, and man, are you bad at blocking things that aren't mid.
For the sake of Richard, would you like to explain what Heidi Voltron is?
Yeah. So basically, Heidi is a
character. You're scanning UVS and looking at it at the moment.
Yeah. So she says stack. You can stack any card. You can stack a card with Krieger in its name. So she basically has all of these mechs, and there's a black mech, a red mech, a blue mech, a green mech, and a yellow mech. and they all add effects to her character. Every single time she takes damage, she has to lose a mech if any of them are attached. But Krieger de Nacht, which is the black Krieger, says if you have all other 4 Kriegers attached to this character, you win the game on the spot. And so the deck is not playing any orange cards. It's just playing really high checks. And then it's playing cards that she's got a bunch of support that, like, one of them auto stacks a character when you play it. So you form with Heidi, you put the character in play, you play a character, you probably check a 6 because you're already playing 19 other 6 checks. And then you're like, all right, cool, I'll auto stack that, so I'll take it out of progressive essentially, and then I need to play 6, 7, 8. Or like I was just like watch Bo doing math, and he'd be like, all right, so I need 6, 7, 8, 9. I can mitigate this. I have to check at least 2 5s and 1 6 to win this turn, and then you would go for that kind of a line.
Because there's no attacks on your turn.
Right.
You know, there's no way for your opponent to interact. You're just there doing some calculations and saying, can I win this turn, or do I need to try to survive one more and win next turn?
Yeah, but it's like so funny because it's just a guaranteed kill. There's like no interacting with it whatsoever, and so I think she's pretty messed up. We didn't see any in the retro event. I'm not sure
Not
that
that I saw.
I don't know if there were nobody
I
playing.
know Michael Murray's trying to find a way to legally do custom arts of the 5 pieces of Exodia using the Heidi mechs.
I think you could do knockoffs, like, yeah. I think that would be pretty funny if you had like if you could ideate what the Krieger Voltron looks like, and then you could just like make the arms and the legs and stuff like that. I think that'd be fun. But yeah, she's degenerate.
I mean, it's retro. Everything's degenerate.
She's one of the less degenerate things in retro.
I'd say she's like on par. I would say like I would take her into like a Goro or something like that. Like you can race a Goro with,
Oh, you absolutely
with
can.
her, and you just do enough blocking not to die, and you're playing all the extra blocks anyway. So like if you've just got it, you're just gonna chuck stuff in your card pool and be like, you know what, I don't need this one, I don't need this one, I don't need this one.
You want
The majority of my retro wins.
Can't reach.
No.
The majority of my retro wins came from my opponent getting to like 10 health, having nothing in hand blocking all my stuff, and me just playing enough foundations into a haymaker for lethal. And it's like, no, just not even a back alley, just the regular set 5
regular
haymaker. And be like, check a 5, this is lethal, catch.
That's awesome.
Is basically, I think Ricky Paul, one of the team's winners, was handing out his asset to everyone who took part.
Was that Judgment Day? Or is that...
I think it's Judgment Day, yeah.
Yeah, Judgment Day is like, it's insane. And that's the best part about making cardboard, is like people being like, I have to have your card for my deck. Because Judgment Day was just like, asset, form, add to hand, flip one of your opponent's cards, and then when you played it, you gained a life. And so you would just every single turn be like, I'm going to apathetic you, but I'm going to play my apathetic back down and gain a life. And
I wonder
it's like
why
Rising
Momo is
Starlight,
banned.
apathetic at the same time. Yeah.
I wonder why Momo's banning Veteran Standout when you can just keep cycling this really good asset.
Momo's also banned because there's like 30 million assets and weapon attacks because Soul Calibur was in this game for like a really long time. And then on top of that, like, I think, did Elk Shield ever get banned, or I think it was just Owl Shield that got banned, but like she's got like an infinite block, like, so does Terry, and I think...
Yeah, the ones that you block from the stage, and then you can just
yeah.
build them down using Momo.
Right, and it's a +1 block, so it's in -2 speed. You're basically like, this is on a -1 every single time I play it. I'm going to take 1 damage from everything. I'm going to gain more life with just Rising Starlight activations and other nons. The format is degenerate, but people are still willing to play it because there's so many interactions and there's so much going on, and like, what you get to see by looking at retro is you get to see little glimpses of stuff that's coming in the future, right? Because we keep reprinting, Yamato Man and Jackie Briggs, and it's just, there's gonna be, like, you're gonna play a card, you'll be like, oh my god, I recognize that from this, like, what are the other possibilities? And like, it's just such a deep, rich history with all these cool messages.
Speaking of Jackie Briggs,
Echo and multiple, right?
Yeah.
So obviously, Echo is like multiple, and it's like, okay, what are the keywords back in the day are they going to maybe think about bringing forward? So things like, could we see like a fixed reversal, or different version, or Gauge? I can't think of any other ones off the top of my head anyway, but like, some of the other mechanics
safe
that might bring
reversal. But going back to the Jackie Briggs comment, he said there was a couple of people of the MHA onlys that were bringing their decks who were just very excited to be able to play Deku 4 with Ready, Get, Set, Go. Because it's not banned.
Right. Yeah, no, that sounds pretty messed up. Yeah, no, that's pretty good. Just be an 8-hander and be like, did I find it? Okay, cool. And you can also play Luck, which is a carbon copy reprint, or Ready, Set, Go is a carbon copy reprint with different symbols, but it still has the life symbol. So if you wanted to, you could play 8 copies of Ready, Set, Go in your deck, which is pretty gross.
It's very gross.
Oh lordy.
Yeah.
This kind of conversation is why people were excited.
Exactly. It's like, what, sky's the limit. What do you want to do? So that's why people were buying retro singles, because you don't have to have every single card. It's freaking impossible. There's so much history. Yeah. What you can say is, this deck looks fun as hell, you know. And you got TTS. TTS has all the cards, right? So you can just like go back in time and ideate if you want to like actually make it a real format and do your testing. And then you go to LWG on the day of, and you're like, hey, Miles, can I get XYZ card that I need for my deck? And you know, he's just like, yeah, sure. Let's change some of these out, because he's been sitting them in storage for 12 freaking years. I mean, that's a win-win for everybody.
I did look up what the cards. I was like, especially you, Hakushoku, I was like, oh, Maze Castle's $3. That's brilliant. And I was like, To-Go Brothers, $40. Why?
Because it's a messed up
band. I hate that card. I think that is my most hated card.
This is coming from somebody whose entire world's win was off of destroying people's foundations.
Yeah, people do it to me.
To be fair, I had it on the symbols of To-Go Brothers, and I was like, yeah, I'm not too bothered by it. And then when I played against the Mimic combo deck that was using the foundation, I was like, if I'd put To-Go Brothers in my deck, I'd have blown up the foundation and I'd have actually won. God damn it. But for Richard here, who was, I've seen the deck you were talking about earlier with the Ragdoll. For the Ragdoll, Richard, the Ragdoll retro deck, basically, if you're going second, you form, go get Twisting Gazoo, and then you just go Twisting Gazoo, action that removes itself, action that removes itself, action that removes itself, and you get into like this ridiculously one-shot attack that cannot be stopped. Yeah. If you're going first, you have some foundations, but the majority of your deck is just... And if you start with Twisting Gazoo in hand, you get a copy of the action you've got in your hand already, and just go, I reveal 2+4 speed.
Yeah. It's just another kind of iteration on that kind of busted all actions sort of twisting action.
Yeah,
right.
They banned Punch and Judy, but it's still here, right?
Right. Yeah, because a big piece of that is just test your might, which is if this attack's damage is 15 or higher, you draw 3 and your opponent mills 3, and it removes from the card pool. And so it's like, here's +2 damage, and I'm gonna draw 3 more test your mights, and I'm just gonna make the most ridiculous twisting azure of all time. So yeah, that deck was really funny to watch go off. It actually lost to I think it was to the infinite damage Solinka combo, because it was doing something very similar to that Mimic deck where it was like making an attack. It was like a Tech Sphere or a Moon Ritual Dance for infinite damage, and then making it a throw with being able to copy Spirit Shotgun's effect. But like it was so funny because me and I can't remember who my co-commentator was on that game. I think it may have been Barrett. We're just like maybe it was Sam. Oh, God, I cannot remember for the life of me. But yeah, we were just like, this infinite is like the worst part of this deck. Like we talked to the player, or the co-commentator talked to the player, and he was like, yeah, the player said they never got the infinite off, and then we got to see the infinite was the kill card for game 3. So, but it's like, here's the most degenerate thing that Jesse can think of versus the most degenerate thing this other person can think of, and like who would win, and it's the silliest representation of this game for sure.
Game 2 against the Tech Sphere Spirit Shotgun deck that was playing Mimic. I actually had a battle plan to beat it. I needed 2 specific cards. The Power of Beauty, which gave -2 speeds and said it couldn't get any more speed bonuses.
Oh, nice.
And Onophobia?
Oh, Phidiophobia.
Phidiophobia.
Yeah.
Anytime I played that, my opponent was like, I hate that card. I pulled 4 in my platinum box, like, you're all going in because you're evil Warpling.
Yeah. Oh God.
Yeah.
Oh, that's just Warpling, yeah.
Yeah, it's Warpling with a 5 check and the evil symbol instead of the life symbol.
It is, yeah.
And it gives just -1 speed to something if you've got character stacks.
You're thinking of the one that came out in later sets. I think it was one of these, not Soul Cal, but
There was, oh, I'm thinking of Kieran Soul.
Yes.
Yeah, which was a Solinka card that was wall cling without a block, but it said -1 damage for each character that you got.
But I just put Power of Beauty in there because it was a Vega card that had a Vega enhanced. And I was like, I'm going to play just for the lore, and then it actually came up really useful because it's like, yeah, you can't gain speed. Have fun with that.
Little tech bullets like that in retro are absolutely cracked. Like, genuinely, You're So Obvious is a good card in the retro format. Just because if your opponent doesn't have an answer to put X reset here, you're just like, all right, cool, your deck doesn't work. And they're like, well, I built this whole thing to be the most broken thing possible as long as you don't have this specific response to it. And you're like, well, I packed it, so do you have an answer? And if they didn't draw their answer, you get another turn. And then you get to do your degenerate thing. So
to side a little bit back into the topic, the same thing applies to teams. When you're looking at retro, when you're looking at standard, you can go, okay, I need to have a couple of these tech pieces because I know I'm most likely going to face this strategy or this strategy. In teams, you're like, I need to put a few one-offs of these really obscure cards because I might run into a Yohojo or a Shigaraki 2 or a Minato 1 that are just doing these really silly things that you wouldn't find anywhere else.
And especially when you're thinking about losing the dice roll, right? Oh, go ahead, Richard, sorry.
You also get to say, right, this matchup, I'm just going to ignore it, right?
Right.
You just like, oh, I can't win, I'm going to leave that to my other two, and I'm going to concentrate on beating these other matchups. Like that's part of that beauty of kind of when you're actually building that team from scratch, rather than just like, okay, two other people want to join me for a team, we'll just do stuff, right? So if you're going into it with a bit more competitive minded and actually planning your decks between you, you can think, okay, you can just write these things off where you can't do that, as you said earlier, like in a singles tournament, you can't just write a matchup off, or else your tournament's over. But you can in that team sort of setting.
Right, and maybe you play a little bit different version of a character, like maybe somebody shows up with Evil Overhaul, but you only see the character, you don't know what symbol it is. So if you're just in rounds and it's Swiss, you're like, all right, well, we're gonna match this deck that has a pretty decent matchup into Life Overhaul, which we're expecting, into this, and it turns out to be Evil Overhaul. You're like, this was a really bad matchup, as it turns out, because I can't deal with throws or whatever.
We can't do this anymore, but last year at Nats, at one point, my team and I sat down against our three opponents, and all three of them threw down Kirishima 2. Just 3 different symbols, and so they were like, yeah, pair whatever you want. You have no idea.
I know who does what in that scenario. You're just like, all right.
Going back to what Rich was saying about giving up a game or giving up a matchup, isn't there a team's asset which is literally one of the people being carried by the other two because he didn't win a single game throughout the entire thing?
I think it was Mike Hardiman getting carried.
It was one person like pulling a cart.
Yeah. There's one person pulling a cart, and then there's somebody wearing a crown, and then Mike Hardiman is in the back asleep in the cart, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, so when Tam says Mike Hardiman is all washed up, I mean, he's been washed up for years, let's be honest. Love you, Mike.
It's a weird one, because I was watching the EU board state one because Andrew's uploaded like the last 4 weeks in one go, and they're talking about if you're putting Vegas odds on the people you expected to be coming back to HLC, and they were saying Mike Hardiman, Nathan James were probably the highest odds out there, you weren't making much money from, and then for them not to make it into the top 8 was a huge shock for some people.
Yeah.
And then you look at NA,
I was really surprised that neither of them made it, genuinely. Was Nathan playing... What was Nathan playing this year?
Overhaul Earth.
Yeah.
Okay.
But you could say the same for US Nats, right? The sort of death row of people at 6'3". There's like your Tim, Andrew, Tam. There was so many people sat in that 6'3" bracket that didn't make it.
Right. Yeah, it was really weird to see, like, and it's hard for me to say like why that happened. It seems like it's part of me wants to say like meta balance, but also part of me wants to say like matchups, and hopefully this doesn't like, I'm not trying to take anything away from the players who top, because they're all incredibly skilled players and they all did really, really well. But part of me was also wondering, did they have more favorable matchups on the day than some of the people who ended up? And I know some people just got absolutely like YOLO'd out of the tournament. Like talking with Andrew about playing against our local Jenny, who just drew like the nuttiest hands back to back to back and just like blew Andrew off the board. And it's one of like, everybody has those games of UKVersus, right? You're gonna draw your hand up and you're just gonna get absolutely like just sent off on vacation where you're like, all right, I can't do anything about this.
There is a YouTube channel. Let's talk UVS. Not to plug someone else on your channel.
No,
but,
it's fine. David's a friend.
All right, so I got to meet David and his brother Patrick at the event, and then listening to the recap after, David mentioned, well, he was the Swiss champ, and he said I won most of my die rolls, and his brother was playing basically the same deck and squeaked into top 32, but much lower, and lost most of his die rolls.
Right.
But there's always that as well.
Right. It would be interesting to like, and I know that there was like at some point some kind of database with a bunch of different players and their results and stuff like that. But it would be really cool to see like throughout the course of the tournament, the character, because I think the problem, you know, because the RLEs didn't get to be as competitive because there weren't like, you know, world's qualification points on the line. Part of me wonders if say RLE winning one and gets you an HLC spot, would we be at this, would people be going to nationals with a better idea of like what is the metagame? Because like Earth Overhaul, we saw it a little bit, but it wasn't like as prevalent. It just like exploded at nationals, right? Like it was kind of everywhere in a lot of different iterations. There was 50 card builds, there were like 80 card builds, there was everything in between.
There were overhauls that wanted to just maximum overhaul you for your life total on turn 2, and there were ones that wanted to slowly build you out until turn 7.
Right, like George was playing 4x maximum overhaul in his life overhaul build, and like in the run up to the tournament, people were like, we don't even know if this is playable in this character. And granted, I mean, it didn't come out that long ago, so there wasn't a whole lot of time to test it. But if there was like 1 or 2 RLEs where people were like really trying to win, and there were, you know, hundreds of people showing up, were those builds of overhaul showing up so that people could just get their win, and then they wouldn't have to worry about fighting tooth and nail through Nats to get to an HLC.
I was playing a character that specifically I was like, great, I have a fantastic Eraserhead matchup because frankly, I don't care if you erase me, I'm not that good. But the rest of my deck will carry me there. And then I saw no Eraserheads the entire day. Which is, looking at the number of Eraserheads who did really well at big events leading up to nationals, I expected there would be a lot of overhauls, but I also expected there would be a lot more Eraserheads.
Yeah. People still scared.
Like, I think with any of these, sorry, go on, Keenan.
Oh no, go ahead, Christian. Sorry.
I was gonna say, with any sort of big event, like to an extent, skill won't carry you so far. You need luck to get through these events. You can't get through a big event. You can't do well with them without a certain amount of luck on your side, given just the amount of people in that room who are also really good at this game, right?
Right, and they're just getting more and more and more every single year. Like everybody who topped, like we got to see, and I keep forgetting his Barlow Guess playing Amajiki, and I don't know Barlow. I'd never heard his name before the tournament, and granted I wasn't paying a whole lot of attention to like recent tournament results and things like that, but like it felt like he came out of nowhere. But he was like sitting at top tables playing against David, or maybe IDing with David Toombs to like in like the last couple of rounds of the tournament, playing Amajiki, which is, you know, a character that on our draft was the last pick of round 1 for a very good reason. But yeah, it was really interesting because it seems like we're seeing a lot of the new players coming out and giving a lot of the old heads a run for their money, but also were there better matchups for those decks, or were there, you know, other factors that could also contribute, like luck, like you said, Richard. I think a lot of these kinds of things sort of came together to make it where like Kevin Broberg, our HLC champion, is not currently qualified to play at the HLC. So, and I think it's a good thing that we are in the situation where we've got a lot of new players. I think it's really good to get new blood and to get them performing at the highest level, because that inspires more new blood to say, hey, this game is beatable. We can show up. It's not just going to be a bunch of these ancient dinosaurs coming out of the earth to drag us back down into it, stomp on our heads, and, you know, take over society as we know it. So
it used to be, way back in the day, I felt comfortable going to an event and sitting down against someone and going, if I don't know your name, I think I can probably beat you. No longer the case. Every single time I have to sit down and go, all right, you could kill me to death. Let's treat you like a real threat. I have no idea who you are, but you could be the worst thing that ever happened to me.
Speaking about shocking events during nationals, how did you guys feel when you looked at the top brackets for EU, Oceania, and NA and saw a Ball Might, a Coda, and an All for One?
Oh, right. Just genuinely, it gives me a lot of. It just fills me with life, because you want to see those dumb those dumb funny characters do well.
Yeah.
I love Coda. Coda, I have been playing a whole lot. I got to play him on a Wednesday weekly. I got to win a Wednesday weekly on a streamed game that was just the funniest, like long string, stupid nonsense win the game
You've been
ever.
building different iterations of Coda for over a year now.
Yeah,
at this
yeah,
point.
yeah. And it's never a character that I thought I was gonna that I would ever consider taking to the to nationals to try to qualify for a spot. But someone did, and they sure got in. That's freaking awesome.
If you had said to me, Coda has managed to top at nationals, I'd be like, yeah, that makes sense. If you said All For One has managed to top at nationals, I would be like, did anyone show up? I thought that character was not just not good, but unplayable in the current meta.
Richard believes.
Whoa! Don't you talk about All For One like that? I love that character.
I mean,
clearly I'm wrong, but please enlighten me.
I mean, again, I don't know if he's necessarily great. I sort of went over because obviously I drafted him and he got me a load of draft points. But I've always really enjoyed playing it. I think he's really good. Like, I think he's better than people give him credit for, and I feel like no one's quite cracked it yet. And maybe they're all that top nationals is a way of cracking it. But to say he's unplayable, I think is terrible slander.
Did you look at Scott's? Have you built All For One? Do you have like lists of him, or were you just like, I just got a good feeling of All For One because his abilities seem like they're conducive to winning the game real good.
Void kicks for the longest time. Like that's how I got my nationals invite from like the first PSA I went to. I played All For One Void kicks, and just really enjoyed that kind of, and very similar to probably like the kind of Void stuff we're seeing now of like just all the defensive foundations and the kicks do the speed, his face does damage.
Yeah.
And,
when there was an All For One we heard there was an All For One doing well, and we were going through it before Scott got on the stream of it. I think you were saying, it must be a void deck because of the kicks. And I was like, I think it's an evil defensive deck. The game's going slower. You got barrier shield. You got Tetra Terror that you automatically get to echo, and then it turns to be a chaos. So I was like, yeah, cool. Not what I was expecting.
I think right. It's just doing all the chaos echo attack.
A lot of echo. So there was Spiral Blast. There was Double Trouble, which is kind of like his bread and butter piece. And then there was Ultimate Combination was just like it was funny too because like he was playing against Phil on stream and we could see both of their hands and every single so Phil was playing Evil Mimic and he had Twisty Surroundings and every single time he would Twisty Surroundings hack a check, Scott would fail the attack he was playing and then play a second copy of that attack from his hand, and it was unfailably like Scott just drew. He was like, okay, here's an electric jolt, okay, fail that, okay, here's a second electric jolt, all right, cool, finally, like, it's time to win the game, here's an ultimate combination, okay, fail that, okay, here's the second ultimate combination. It's like it was like Scott definitely got some good draws on it, but you could like the bones were there. Like that deck was actively terrifying, and it's a really cool version of that. I got to play against Andrew Holder playing his version of I think that deck off of Chaos and doing the Double Trouble thing at Kansas City, and he just like I don't even remember what he did. I just remember he played Double Trouble a bunch of times and I lost, and it was it was so fun. I was playing Eraserhead too, so I'm like, okay, I got infinite mid blocks, whatever. Come at me with your infinite attacks, and I'm like, I can't do anything. My deck sucks, or I suck, or a combination of the two. What is going on? And then I forgot about it, and literally All For One got erased from my memory until Scott shows up with it, and we got to see him playing Phil, which is crazy. So
it's one of those things that looking at the Ball Mike Coda All For One, I'm not too familiar with your past experiences top cutting, but as a player who made their name playing a very underrated character, the amount of community support you get immediately as soon as it's announced you've top cut us, you get inundated with messages. I had like people from then Jasco message me going, we're backing you here. You got everyone on the team is wanting you to keep going. It's like you get a real good sense of camaraderie. You really being the underdog can have a real pressure, but knowing that everyone in the community is going, you've got this, can really alleviate it.
Right. No, yeah.
The thing is, with playing in a game that's built off of franchises, everyone wants to believe that if you have a favorite character in a franchise that you can play that character and do well with it, even if it's not a great character. So as soon as someone does play with not a great character and do really well, people are like, oh, the dream is alive.
Right. Yeah, and talking about like Jasco employees messaging, like Jeremy Ray, one of our esteemed card designers, is like, when he was playing competitively, it was always, what is the fun deck? What is my favorite character that I want to make do really well? And so I think a lot of that belief is alive and well, especially at the design team at Jasco Games. Like the design team has so much history playing it, but when they design something and it comes out and everybody's like, oh, he's kind of mid. Like I just said, when we started off, I was like, yeah, Godzilla sucks. I'm sure somebody on design is gonna like frown a little bit, and then Godzilla's gonna get to the next HLC or the next standard worlds or whatever they call it, and they're gonna be like, oh my god, Godzilla player, you're going all the way. You have to play Godzilla for the next thing. Like it's exciting because you get to see like people the level of innovation in this card game. And I've said this so many times on so many different platforms and podcasts and things like that whenever I go on, but like, is a deck builder's card game through and through. The way that you deck build in this game is so much more unique than any other game, and it really lends itself to like, you do see these rogue decks show up, and our metagame is already wider than any other competitive CCG. Like our base metagame is, I think we went down like 11 characters, like all the way to Momo, in what I would probably consider like the top metagame in our draft. But like even then, all those like bottom picks that were still like surfacing. And I mean, Todoroki, it's kind of crazy that David got it as late as he did, considering how good it was at Gen Con and how good it continued to be. And like you just see it's so wide, the metagame proper, and then you see the dark horses that keep showing up and you're like, I mean, the game is still beautiful. It's still mechanically incredible, and like the level of innovation that you can get to if you're really invested and you're really trying to make something work, like you can get super rewarded for that.
Definitely. I mean, look at Nationals, and I think Daniel Nelson, the original Bird player, playing the inverted knife throw Award the Victor deck.
Oh my god, that was so funny.
That is something that had never occurred to me to like, that is perfect. That is such a good combo in any Chaos deck.
And I was talking to Tim Keefe about it because we were between, I think it was like rounds 3 and 4 or 4 and 5 or something like that. But like, I'm walking around, I find Tim, I'm like, hey Tim, what are you playing? And he's like, oh, I'm playing Bird. I was like, oh, what symbol are you playing off of? Because I'm thinking like Fire, because Tim's had a lot of time on Bird as well, especially on Fire. And he's like, no, I'm playing the Chaos system. I'm like, are you playing Inverted Knife Throw? Because I'd already talked to Daniel earlier in the day, and he's like, I don't think I'm playing that. It seems a little bit shaky, blah, 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 blah. And then, like, Daniel tops, and Tim doesn't end up topping, and I'm like, it's crazy to me that, like, the evaluations of different players at different points in the day, like, Tim is in... You can't take anything away from Tim. He's a 2-time world champion, 1-time national champion. He is one of the best minds in the game. He's an incredible person. Like, I love Tim Keefe so much, and I hold his opinion in such esteem. And then Daniel's like, yeah, it's inverted knife throws, and I mean, I love Daniel too. He hasn't won like all this cardboard, and I'm like, okay, well, maybe Tim's got more of an idea about this. And then one of them gets there and one of them doesn't, and it's like, that's crazy. But it's the innovation of it, and it's how many of these inverted knife throws were there inverted knife throws in the decks that were showing up for was it OCE? Because I know there were 2 Chaos Tokugamis.
They were doing more Manifest and Spiral Blast stuff, right?
Okay.
Yeah, Zane and James's deck was specifically designed to be a bit slower and take down Overhaul. They weren't designed with that kind of those interactions in mind. Maybe it's something that might improve on in the future. I know they've been testing out Endeavor and stuff moving forward.
Yeah, no, because that's the thing. Like, how many ways can you build a bird at this stage?
Apparently still many.
So, like there was at least 3 different versions that showed up, and Tim and Kevin were playing lists that were, I think, talking to Tim, I think they were 5 cards apart. So like, you've got the Tim Kevin build, which they're going to continue to ideate on, and they're going to now that there's a new set coming up, they might not be doing that. But like if say there was another the HLC was just this format, they would continue to be ideating on it, continue to be transforming it, trying to last chance qualify with it, and then you've got Daniel's version, which is the inverted knife throw version, and then you've got the version that people qualify with OCE. So like it's and that's just one symbol. We haven't even talked about Fire yet, which really has one build right now because Jacob Johnson is a mad lad of a scientist or whatever, and I would have played Richard. I would have absolutely played that deck if I was playing. Like genuinely, that was my pick to play for the HLC if I wasn't casting, or not for nationals if I wasn't casting. But yeah, it's like
really brutal list. And then even going into Fire, like something I've sort of tinkered with is like the Fury version, which is it's prominence bird because you get to summon Dark Shadow into prominence burn, so it's not actually a 6-diff.
Yeah.
Which again, I wish I'd had more time to sort of practice with it and sort of play with it and get that right. But I think probably having Twisting Out just was better. But yeah, so like even there's like another idea going forward. So yeah, like you say, it is very much a deck builder's paradise. And even sort of looking at the inverted knife throw thing, a lot of that might come down to just personal preference, right?
Right.
Like there isn't necessarily like right or wrong answers here. It's like what cards feel good to you in your deck that you're playing it. So for me, like I can't stand Ultimate Combination. I think the card terrible. And obviously that Scott kind of top cut with it, so I'm probably wrong, but I'm still gonna think the card terrible and probably never play it,
Well, it goes back to what Keenan was saying about individual playstyles and deck building. There's so many options, there's so many different ways to do it. The way I build a deck is not gonna be the same way other people like. It's about drawing inspiration, and when it's like in August when I played Midnight and I got the 17th, when then Garrett Brett comes in with Midnight at Rochester and tops, and then we got I think Brandon comes in and tops as well. So I'm looking at the list going, what's different? What do I need to adapt?
Right, and Garrett's Midnight deck informs Void Eraser heads, where like he's playing Twin Sword Slicer, and then suddenly we see Twin Sword Slicer showing up in the list that won the UK, right? And like seeing Garrett's Midnight list, we had already. We once we saw that, I built a Twin Sword Slicer Eraserhead almost immediately because I was like, this is cool shit. Prone to Dry Eyes, and this card is just 30 million damage. Eraserhead can kill people now, and like that got me excited to actually like try to push Eraserhead more. And then I see it top, and like the version that won was definitely way better and more tested than my version was, but it's still like it's just cool.
That plays right back into play styles because when initially I was trying to play Mario and I was just getting my butt kicked left and right. I was so angry, like, why am I not good at this game anymore? And Keenan was like, because you don't like aggro. You're not an aggro player. You don't think like an aggro player. Stop playing aggro. So I played Eraserhead for a bit, played Void Eraserhead, tried playing Death Eraserhead, which everyone said was better. And I said, why is this better? It's so much worse. Keenan took our Void Eraser that was very defensive and changed it to put in the prones. And then when we're playing back and forth, he could wipe the floor with me every time. Every time I tried to play that deck, I could not make it work because it wasn't aggressive.
Yeah, exactly.
All I want to do is defend.
And so like Nathan tops with his Void Eraser that's I don't think has a single Prone to Dry Eyes in it. He's definitely not playing Twin Sword Slicer, and it's like. Each individual player is coming to the table with the thing that they want to do and trying to prove to the community writ large that it is a better version of that. And really what it is you're just proving that your play style is valid inside of a whole metagame full of people who are, seeing the overhaul deck that topped in the UK and trying to make it work in North America.
That goes back to the Patrick David argument because Mike Hardiman is the originator of Liam's list. It's got one card difference. And we know that Mike Hardiman and Garrett Brett are quite close. So I imagine there was some discussions as to where the Midnight deck would evolve, and Mike ultimately said that Eraserhead was going to be better. And it's great to see like different playstyles. So I was quite shocked to see Garrett Brett not play Midnight into... Then when I was talking to Mike, and he's like... I think he's on Overhaul. I was like, that is a complete detraction from what he's been playing. But it's like he's earned the benefit of the doubt going. Garrett Brett has definitely earned the benefit of the doubt going, you know what you're doing.
Right. And Garrett, like, Overhaul is a very Garrett character. I think the least Garrett part of Overhaul is that Overhaul's a metagame character. Like Garrett loves to play a little off meta and hella control-y, and I think it says something about the metagame as a whole potentially when Garrett like kind of maybe I talked to him, but I didn't really ask him this. Like, did he just throw his hands up and say, you know what, Overhaul is the best thing that I've got right now, and I don't feel like I can, say that Midnight is applicable in these and the problem, of course, when you're trying to be like that innovator, but you're also trying to win, is there's one tournament that you have to make it to the HLC. So what are you going to play? Are you going to play the thing that is absolutely the best possible version of winning, or is it going to be the thanks Ashley. Sorry, our dog is going crazy at the wall. But yeah, is Overhaul like is you have to play Overhaul, or do you want to play the thing that you've been like ideating on and practicing with and really trying to make right? Like I had to do that at the HLC when I switched over to Ojiro because I could not get Asui to win a single game against Bird to save my life, and I was just like, I'm just gonna switch into Ojiro because his matchups are insane, this character's broken, and also I don't have to worry about always losing to Bird. So yeah, I think Garrett had to struggle with that kind of piece, and it made him do Overhaul. Or maybe he just said, you know what, I don't want to play Midnight this time because that man carries like 6 decks with him at all times, and sometimes before a tournament he will roll a dice and just, it's this one. All right, cool, we're there.
Madness.
There is one other thing that did make me think of changing over is the 9 rounds. If you're initially going into an event thinking the 9 rounds all happen in one day, you don't want to play a deck where you're playing full time every single time. Mm-hmm. So I wonder if, like, the early lunch break into then the stream break, because the stream went down, into then day 2 breaking up, did actually change the outcome of the tournament, because the players that wouldn't usually get that rest between rounds were getting extra rest.
I heard that from multiple people at the tournament. I heard several players saying, if I had known that this was a 2-day Swiss tournament, I would have felt more comfortable playing Eraserhead because I would have thought that I have, the capability to do so, and I would be like, I would have my mental faculties all there because 8 and 9 are played with a full night's rest, as opposed to the marathon that a 9-round tournament is otherwise. And it's really unfortunate. The early lunch break was, as far as I know, the early lunch break was a product of the website breaking, and it's really unfortunate that the website couldn't handle the 700 or so people who were all checking it to see what the standings were, whether you were there or not there, or maybe there was something else going on where there was just a blip at a really unfortunate time. But it was that was definitely really unfortunate. And being on the casting team, like I was staying in the same hotel as Jelly. I got to talk with them about it, and it was like, yeah, this is not ideal, but they kind of felt forced into that scenario just given the time constraints. You're at a convention. It's not your event. It's not the HLC where it's like, okay, we run the show. This is our space. We bought our space and all that sort of stuff. It's like we've got this whole other group of people who are all working here, and they are not associated with our event, but our event is the reason that they're going to have a long night, and it's kind of unfortunate. And it still ended up being a really long night on Sunday because the last, like, unfortunately, like, Todoroki versus Overhaul is just a slog, and Carson had to play that match twice, or maybe 3 times. So
and he had to play into Nomu twice day 2.
Yeah. His Nomu matchup was really, really good, but he has to be really cautious with it. And then the Overhaul matches were just like, I think his he had to play the first one he did, and it like the reason that we streamed both of them. I think we streamed both of those, and I didn't have to commentate either of them, but I got to commentate the Mimic match in the middle, and the Mimic match took like maybe 50 minutes. It was just like, and both players were playing fast and loose, and Carson's like, I gotta kill you, and I got the win right here, so I'm just gonna go in. But it's like, it's when you're playing that water deck, it's how reactionary you have to be against the other player and how explosive they're being, and you can read the matchups in different ways. But like I reckon, because I played water, a very a similar-ish in concept list all last year, and I remember very well my matchups against Jiro being really quick, and my matchups against Kirishima 2 going into that same exact Overhaul long game that George and Carson had to play. And yeah, it's just unfortunate that like because we moved 2 rounds, I feel like we could have had 8 rounds on the first day, and it would have saved us, it would save like an hour and a half on the second day, which would have allowed the players to hopefully be there. That's another thing, just that that just sort of like hurt my soul. And we were talking about this a little bit at dinner afterwards. I went out. We went out with the Unfun Stuff boys, and we were kind of talking. It's like they just finished a tournament. They just finished a national level tournament, and the only people in the building to get excited and hype are the Jasco employees who said they were going to stay a little bit later to help make sure that everything got cleaned up afterwards.
When Barrett won his national title last year, everyone was still there because teams was going on, side events were going on, so he got to walk up on stage as 300 people are cheering,
handed him a microphone, like,
George got was a couple of employees going, "We're so late, get out."
Yeah, like not even an interview. It's like, hey, the day is over, we have to go. And it's unfortunate, like definitely from a timing perspective, not ideal, but it definitely like it's like there need to be interviews. I think they could still do interviews. I think they could do like a Wednesday webcam weekly. Bring on George, bring on Carson, have like an interview with like a loser and winners interview, let them talk about their experience or what have you, because I think it's so deserved, right? Like I want to see George. Sorry?
I said they ran those gauntlets. They got to the grand finals, like
right, and they played marathon days.
It is one of the things I do miss. I do feel is missed out on the international times as well. Is because you guys are remote casting, you don't get the after game interviews. We don't get to sit down after stream and be like, "Yeah, this is what I was thinking." You get to listen to our audio and you can relay what we're doing during the game, but you don't get to actually have that how you feeling after the game sort of thing.
And I think I would love to see like locals commentating on their own large scale tournaments, right? Like I would love to see the casting team expand, and I would love like the Doppers to go and do all of like the UK commentary or like UKVersus or what have you. Like I want to see that because it helps expand our internationality. It says, hey, we've talked about this ad nauseum at this stage. The UK and OCE, they're getting a shorter end of the stick in a lot of different ways for the game, and that's by design. The complexity of internationalizing a card game, and I don't know what all goes into that, but like having American casters go. I'm sure there are people in the UK who have the means to do the work and to provide insightful commentary that people are going to want to listen to. And at the same time, like, you do have to say, I'm going to sacrifice playing in specific events. And for an RLE this year, it was easy because you're not getting anything if you win an RLE except for some cardboard, right? You're getting the glory of it, which I think is at the end of the day, like the thing that I'm the most invested in as a player. But you're not getting like you're not guaranteeing your trip to the HLC. But like it just feels weird when you're tuning in and you're like, all right, well, this is the British event, but we've got, our American commentators. This is the UK event, or this is the OCE event. You guys just stay up until 2 a.m. and do it. Not to say that anybody in those events did a bad job. They did an amazing job, but at the same time, it's like these people, like it's your own region, it's your own decks. They're gonna have so much more to talk about in terms of like, this is my local who's on stream right now. This person's been playing this deck for X amount of time. Like, you're gonna have more background, more storylines, right? And like, we've got some people who do really good jobs at storylines. Like Andrew Holder is the #1 storyline. He's the storyline king because he's very much into, what are the results? He's always paying attention to the 17 through 30 to like maybe through top 64 even. But like he is the #1 at being able to do that. But like, when you have people who have a little bit greater context, or they can talk about, they may have talked to these players, in the playing hall before the tournament or before the round, and they were like, how's your tournament going? And they're like, oh, great, I just had this crazy match against this overhaul where like this happened and that other thing happened, and that's something that you can pull on later if you get them on stream that turn, because you're in person, you've got that face-to-face contact with them. I was pulling on those kinds of experience literally all weekend while I was casting, because I was going up and talking to players, and so it was just like, I don't know. I would love to see that be the future of the stream.
Yeah.
But yeah.
One of the things I was saying during nights is, as good as it would be for the 8 HLC players from last year to go back, or for the known EU players to top of the events, I really wanted new blood to get out. That's why I'm glad that Matthew and Kyle got their names out there, and it's because I want more EU. I want more EU players recognizable. When you talk to people online and you go, "Who are the top 5 EU players?" You're not always getting a variation of the same 5 people. You're going, "Oh, these dark horses that have been doing really well in events. You just haven't heard about them yet, but hopefully at Nats they're going to come out."
Right, and I mean that extends to like who are the top 5 players. Like start, throwing EU. I feel like so much of the game has been conversationally NA dominated, but like the UK and OC clearly have something to offer. Philip got second twice. I know he's not from the UK, but like the European region, which ends up funning the UK because you guys play group size. But yeah, like
he's an honorary dobber. It's fine.
Yeah. See, there you go.
I was going to bring it up during the retro, but I completely forgot about it. So during nationals, our judges stepped back into the ring. Mr. Murray carried on being head judge, but Michael McEwen and Nathan Squire stepped back in. And during retro, they got the embarrassing things of having to take judge damage themselves.
Wait, did they take judge damage?
They take judge damage. So Michael McEwen played a multiple attack. Played the multiple attack, resolved multiple, and then played another form before resolving his multiple attacks.
Oh,
and he did that twice. The best.
To be fair, it's confusing.
The best one was Nathan Squire, who went league interview, first form discard 2, self-destruct first form, and then went, "Oh no, wait, I can't do that."
Yeah. Can't double first form.
Can't double first form.
The interactions in this game are already confusing. I've been playing this game for X number of years, and I had to call a judge twice during nationals.
Yeah. That's during MHA. That's not even called the retro wild card. Like the ability reversal. As somebody who's been playing this game for 17 years, the ability reversal has been rewritten probably 6 times. It has never worked correctly because the way that the game's mechanics work, it shouldn't technically be possible. The wording for multiple has been rewritten, I think, the same number of times. There was one point at which multiples would resolve and they would just become a face down card. They were no longer even considered an attack anymore. There was a time where you could multiples way back in the day, and then there was a card that would give attacks multiples, so then they were like, okay, no, this doesn't make any sense. Like it is just like a continuously ideating piece. So like you're taking judges who are like, I would imagine more MHA focused, and you're saying, hey, go play in a playground that is like you've been playing with like the kids' plastic cutlery. Go play in like the knife store and figure it out.
We had the interaction of I played Tetra Terror. Nathan Squire blocked me, then went reversal, and I was like, can I not respond with my Echo first? He's like, oh, that's a good point. How does that work?
How does that work? I think the reversal would go, and then you would respond Echo because the response window would.
Because the reversal is on block, right?
Yeah.
So
it got on resolution.
It got escalated to our head judge, and Mary went, reversal is a response on block, whereas Echo is your next form. So the reversal resolves first, then you get to check.
Hey, that's some of the rules.
Okay. See, the thing is, it's not just extra interactions, it's interactions that you conceivably have had no chance to practice with. So even if you can, like this, talk your way through it, it is that extra bit of time to go, hang on.
Wait a minute.
Let's think
even if
Let's get the smartest person in this room, because literally no one else can judge this format.
It's even if you know the rules, you know the interactions, like, I just want to double check because I don't want to get this wrong.
Yeah, because then you're going to have to do that, 30 more times if that's like an interaction inside of your deck, and you're like, I have to go to tops with this interaction in mind, and it would suck to get there and then be like, that's not how that works.
Yeah.
I did that to win my my team's my legacy championship, actually.
Oh no.
I didn't realize that my character was playable. Oh, he could only destroy ready foundations for the discard. I played all of Swiss not knowing that, and then I played against John Eyre in my first round of tops, and he was like, no, that's how that works. And I was like, well, shit. And you know, at that point, it was a 24-person event, and nobody had said anything up to that point. So it was like, all right, nobody read my card. And then the next year at Legacy, I lost because I didn't read somebody's card. When Mark Wisniewski said, "Hey, you can't play attacks for the rest of the turn." He said, "You can't play cards that check a 3 for the rest of the turn." And I didn't bother to read his piece. I just said, "Yeah, no, that's right." And then after the game, I read it. I picked it up. I was like, "This card is broken." It says non-attacks. Non-attack with 3 checks. I was like, "Oh, I had 8 attacks in my hand." Like, I had literally sculpted for 30 turns. I had everything I needed to win the game on the spot. I just didn't read your card because I was dumb.
Like you said earlier, we were rooming with Levi during the event, and at the end of Retro, he came back and was like, "Look at all these pictures I got," and every picture is just someone going, "What?" Just holding the card real close to their face, like, "What is this?"
He got some really good ones.
Levi, I've been talking with Levi recently because I'm going to bring him some tea bags, and he wants to get a picture of me in my dabby coat and him in his Hawks coat doing the league handler art. But he was telling me the footage he's gotten when he wasn't commentating on that. He's been working the entire weekend. He didn't really take a break. But as lovely as it is to keep chatting to you guys, and we could probably do it for another few hours, I think we're going to have to wrap up because we've got kids to take to school tomorrow.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Totally reasonable. Yeah, tomorrow is a work day, yeah.
We'll definitely get you guys back on at some point because it's been absolutely lovely. I was only planning to do a 1 hour chat on Teams, but we've just been going into everything.
Yes. As I said, that, we have a rough agenda and then we just waffle for a couple of hours.
And so we'll wrap up here. And Ashley, I'm going to have a chat with you after this because you mentioned earlier you like bad, scary movies. One of my partner's hobbies is bad, scary movies. He's seen every single shark movie, from Sharks in Venice to Ghost Shark, as well as Zombievers.
Zombievers is one of her
the song is amazing, and
the song at the end is
every time I just watch Zombievers, but really pay attention to the
you and Robin will get on really well. And there's a new one coming out called Slaughterhouse, which is about a sloth which goes on a killing rampage.
Oh, perfect.
So yeah, I might introduce you to Robin, talk about these bad horror movies because they'll absolutely go nuts for it. But
we'll start talking. We'll kick you out.
Yeah, exactly.
Me and Brad will be playing cards in the room. It'll be fun.
If they can get Zena Robinson for HLC, they'll be coming with me.
Oh, perfect.
Hell yeah.
Well, I'm excited.
Right.
Now, you said it. Now it has to happen.
Exactly. But we'll leave it there. Thanks Richard for being here as always, and thank you to Ashley and Keenan.
Thank you very much for joining, guys. It's been great. Obviously, if you're watching on YouTube, do all the things, press the buttons, all that jazz. And yeah, hope to catch you guys soon. And everyone in chat, thanks for joining us. And thank you very much.
Goodbye.
Thanks for having us, guys. This was so much fun.
Yes, thank you so much. We love talking about cards.